Iberico ham is one of the shining stars in Spanish gastronomy. It is a delicacy appreciated by gourmets all over the world. Iberico ham comes from the Iberian pig, an indigenous breed which is distinguished from other breeds by dark or reddish skin and by its physical characteristics: round body, tapered snout, long fine legs, lack of hair. However, what really makes this breed different is its genetic makeup. This is closely linked to its breeding in extensive conditions within a particular ecosystem, the dehesa, which conditions its feeding habits based on grass and mainly acorns. The Iberian pig, a long-standing inhabitant of the dehesa, is well used to walking many miles every day in search of food, taking advantage of the plant life offered to a lesser or greater extent, depending on the season, by its surrounding environment. Although it does not look it, the Iberian pig is an athletic, hardy animal, perfectly suited to the conditions imposed by its natural habitat. The combination of these factors, breed, natural feeding and intense exercise, make this animal capable of incorporating a larger amount of fat between its muscles. This is what gives Iberico ham its distinctive white marbling. The Iberian pig also easily metabolizes the carbohydrates it gains from acorns, turning them into oleic acid. This is the same fatty acid that makes up the majority of fats found in olive oil. In fact, one could almost say the dehesa is the natural habitat of the Iberian pig. It is a unique ecosystem that is only found in the Iberian Peninsula, mainly in Spain, where there are some 7.4 million acres. It is a huge plant-rich expanse, populated with age-old trees, and covers an area equivalent to that of Belgium. The dehesa spreads out along the southwest of the peninsula and is particularly abundant in Extremadura, where it exists side by side with urban areas. With its own unique climate, the dehesa has relatively mild winters and fiercely hot summers. Despite this, the large number of trees in the region helps to shade the numerous species of birds and mammals that make this kind of forest their home. This is not a wild forest, it is more of a domestic forest, preserved and adapted by man for mainly farming use. As well as the Iberian pig, the dehesa also houses other indigenous species, such as the merina sheep or the retinta cow. The area is a perfect example of sustainable development. As the surrounding villages base their domestic economies on the dehesa, environmental respect is guaranteed. As well as stock breeding, the area also has other agroforestry uses. The bark of the cork tree can be peeled away to extract the cork from inside. The holmogs are pruned in such a way as to ensure their branches grow horizontally, thus increasing shade and protecting both pasture and animals during the summer months. Wood from these trees is greatly valued in the cabinet-making industry. Furthermore, its energy value means that it is also used for charcoal. In fact, you can still often see charcoal makers in the dehesa going about their business in the early hours of the morning. The dehesa's rich plant life can be divided into three categories. the herbaceous level, made up of grass and wild flowers, the bush level, made up of aromatic plants, the arboreal level, dominated by holm oaks and cork trees. This third level also contains oak, chestnut, olive and gall oak trees, but in much lesser numbers. In many cases, these trees date back several centuries. The Iberian pig has traditionally been reared extensively in conditions of semi-liberty which favour the maximum quality of the finished product. Due to this, the amount of land that needs to be set aside for pig farming is immense. Each animal requires approximately 5 acres of dehesa in order to be able to feed properly. To understand how a pig is reared, a key concept must be understood: montanera. The montanera is a period between October and February when the acorns have matured and the animals can begin to feed. 14 months pass from the birth of the pig until it is slaughtered. For the pig to produce top quality or bellota hams, it must enter the montanera period when it is aged around 12 months and weighs approximately 220 pounds. The farmer must carefully plan the birth of new pigs with this in mind. The sow's gestation period is 3 months, 3 weeks and 3 days. The birthing process should be carried out under controlled conditions, thus avoiding loss of any piglets. Each litter contains between 6 and 8 animals, which over the following 45 days will be fed by the sow until they reach a weight of 22 pounds. When it no longer suckles from the sow, the animal becomes known as a lechon, and the proper breeding process begins. Over the few days following separation from the mother, the animal is fodder fed indoors, thus avoiding trauma or stress of any kind. Then the young pig moves into the open, a period which lasts until it reaches 66 pounds in weight. It is at this stage that the lechon becomes a marrano. This period normally coincides with the summertime, when pasture becomes scarce. The pig then has to feed on the few bits of grass, roots and seeds it can find. This is not a problem for the pig, however, as it is well used to these conditions. It really is an animal that knows how to handle hunger. Due to low perspiration levels, the pig needs to stay continually cool during the summer months. When it is aged approximately 1 year, the pig has become an adult and is now called a cochino. It is at this moment that it will enter the montanera phase, feeding mainly on acorns. The cochino will remain in montanera until it weighs between 350 and 375 pounds, the ideal weight at which it should be slaughtered. In order to produce the highest quality ham possible, it is of the utmost importance that during this phase, the pig increases its body weight by 50% by feeding on acorns. Only hams from this type of pig can be classified under the bellota category, which indicates maximum quality. The holm oaks and cork trees which produce these acorns are trees with irregular yields from 1 year to the next. For this reason, acorn levels can never be exactly predicted. In this respect, the stock breeder's experience is fundamental in the calculation of how many pigs should go into montanera, in accordance with the availability of acorns at the time. During the final growth phase, an Iberian pig will manage to get through up to 22 pounds of acorns per day. Managing these animals and ensuring adequate feeding requires practice and great skill on the part of the pig farmers. In some areas, the trees are struck in order to make the acorns fall to the ground. In others, they are left to fall by themselves, and the farmers lead the pigs from one plot to the next so that they can feed properly. In years where acorn availability is low, not every pig can feed from this fruit. They will have to enter the montanera phase for a shorter period of time. They will then be fodder-fed for the rest of their lives up until slaughter. These are the so-called recebo Iberian pigs, which also produce quality hams, as they have been fed in exactly the same way as the bellota pigs up until shortly before slaughter. The process for making Iberian ham is now mechanized, but the human touch is still a key element. After the pig is quartered, the pieces are then further cut and refined in order to eliminate any superfluous fat. A large percentage of the skin is also removed. In this way, the ham will be able to breathe during the curing process. The ham is then salted with sea salt, a process which also helps in preserving the ham, as salt prevents the development of unwanted microorganisms. The hams are piled up in containers and covered in sea salt before being stored at a temperature of between 0 and 46 degrees Fahrenheit. The hams remain covered in salt for approximately 1 day per 2 pounds. Once removed and washed, the hams are then transferred to stabilization rooms. Here they are kept under controlled temperature and humidity levels, and the meat transformation process can begin. They will stay in this state for between 60 and 90 days. Then comes the drying phase, where the skills of the master jamonero, ham maker, play a crucial role. Here, temperature and humidity control are monitored by traditional methods without any kind of technical equipment. Instead, blinds and windows are opened and closed to regulate the flow of mountain air. The ham is cured in this way for a period lasting between 6 and 12 months. The process is concluded with the maturation phase, which takes place in the cellar. Just like good wines, the hams rest in these dark, silent surroundings for between 9 and 18 months. In the peacefulness of the cellars, the hams develop a mold which helps to stabilize the acorn oil which has infiltrated the ham's muscular fiber during the drying period. This microflora, which is indigenous to each region, gives the ham its necessary succulence and helps to concentrate its flavor. Due to aesthetic reasons, however, it is removed when the ham is sold. The ham's qualities are checked through the sampling process, whereby the master jamonero, using only his expert sense of smell, evaluates the final quality of this gastronomic delicacy, the bellota Iberico ham. To fully savour an Iberico ham, it must be sliced properly. Slicing should begin at the back of the ham, known as the matha. It is here that the largest amounts of meat with the best flavour are to be found. The piece of meat is placed hoof up on a special support called a jamonero. The first cut should be a slanted incision at the hock. Then, the external layer should be removed, which has been formed by hard skin during the maturation process. The surplus fat should then be peeled back until the meat itself is visible. Once this process has been completed, the meat can then be sliced with a well-sharpened ham maker's knife. The cuts should be slow, trying to produce thin, not very large slices, which improve the ham's aroma on the palate. It is not uncommon to find little white specks on the meat. This is not a defect, but rather a sign that the ham is of a high quality. These are simply thyroxine crystals, a byproduct of protein breakdown, and they appear when the ham has matured correctly. In order to be able to appreciate the flavour and aroma of Iberico ham, the meat should be sliced as thinly as possible. As the carving process goes on, the carver will come to the hip bone. A smaller knife should be used here so that it is easier to slice the meat around the bone. The outer rind should be removed as the carving process goes on. The best way to ensure that the ham does not dry out in between carvings is to cover it with slices of the surplus fat removed earlier. In this way, the fat on the ham's surface will always remain fresh. The ham should then be covered with a sheet of cling film. Once the ham has been carved as far as the femur, the piece of meat must be turned around so that the front of the ham, called the babilla, can be sliced. The ham is sliced in the same way here, although the colour of the slices will not be as vibrant. Once the bone has been reached again, the ham must once again be turned so that the side part can be sliced. Finally, the bottom of the ham, called the punta, is sliced. Here, the flexibility of the ham maker's knife really comes into its own. The meat next to the bone, which can only be cut irregularly, can also be cubed. The bone is then cut with a saw into 4 to 6 inch pieces. These are used to make stocks, which, due to the nature of the raw material, will have an exceptional flavour.